An approximately 3% increase to the minimum wage has been announced by the Fair Work Commission, which has been in place since July 1st. This increases the national minimum wage to more than $640 per week, or approximately $16.90 an hour. This is clearly a lower increase than last year due to the lower inflation rates. That is, the general prices of goods and services are still rising, but at a lower rate compared to last year. This has caused much controversy between individuals, businesses, and the government, which I will be discussing today. Within Jared Owens' article, Owens discusses the first issue brought upon us. That is, that an increase in the national minimum wage could lead to fewer people getting jobs and even some people losing their own. It can simply be explained with the interaction between demand and supply. With a product, once the price rises, we become less inclined to buy the product. This is exactly the same with the labor market, where if an employer is enforced to pay his employees a higher wage, the need for an excessive amount of employees diminishes. This is explained within the article, where Owen states that it would force Australian businesses to pay either the highest or second highest minimum wage in the world. This is further explained within this diagram. Here we have a situational perfect world, where the labor supplied is equal to that demanded. Let's say that due to the government raising the minimum wage, the demand for labor then contracts to this point, and the supply of labor then decreases to form the new equilibrium. With this new equilibrium, you are able to see that the wage has risen, but the quantity of labor has lowered. This causes certain firms to be under strain. Their first choice is to pay their current staff the wage increase, therefore losing their profits as the cost of labor is higher, or they can cut down any labor that is not required and pay the remaining employees the updated wage, which would not jeopardize their profits but lessen their productivity. This then highly affects the individuals that were made redundant, having to find different ways to gain an income and keeping up to their everyday lives. In the article, it mentions that this would severely jeopardize the jobs of unskilled workers in struggling industries. This is because those who do not have any specific skill that are made redundant will find it more difficult to then find a new job with their lack of qualifications. On top of this, they would be most likely to be made redundant due to their low level of skills, seeming as an unwanted quality towards employers who cannot afford to pay those who are not of vital providence to the company. The government will then need to tackle many different situations that are brought upon the rising levels of unemployment. Higher welfare costs may be needed to be able to keep up with those who are unemployed, draining the government's finances, causing an opportunity cost where more is spent on benefits payment and less on other areas of the economy. Furthermore, the government will gain fewer tax revenues as there are less people working, therefore less people earning income to pay tax. This would affect the level of the government's finance, which would then affect those within the community as government spending would be less. But, on the other hand, the reason why the Fair Work Commission decided to increase the minimum wage must be discussed. It is stated in the article that the minimum wage was increased as the government's effort to lift the employment rate. This is the second issue, as why would the government decide to increase the minimum wage in an effort to lift employment when it was proven above that it would decrease employment? The problem with the theory above is that it takes into account ceteris paribus, that every other aspect is equal. Firstly, not all firms pay their labor the minimum wage, meaning many firms already pay beyond what the minimum wage is. Owen states in the article, minimum wage workers account for about 2% of the working population, although a large percentage of that group doesn't stay in the minimum wage for long. This means that only a very small proportion of the workforce may be made redundant. In addition, to those who are on the minimum wage and do keep their jobs, they will gain the benefits of the wage increase. This provides them with an even higher safety net. That is, they have a higher chance of being able to pay for the upkeep of their life. This will then decrease the level of overall poverty within the low-income areas that do still have their jobs. For governments, this would be an attempt to combat poverty and help those who are currently living off the bare minimum. The quality of life will increase, which can lead to less welfare needed to be provided by the government. If less welfare is needed, the government can use their revenue gained through taxes on other sectors of the economy, such as education. This can go even further. As there is more money being spent on education, the future generations will have the chance to have a better education, therefore increasing their quality of life, increasing those who possess high level of skills to be recruited in the workforce, and also increasing the overall productivity of the workforce. This can be seen with these two graphs. one showing the minimum weekly wage increases since 2012, and the other showing productivity since 2012. As you can see, there's a correlation between both graphs. That is that both graphs have an increasing trend. This is due to employees wanting to work more as they are gaining higher incentives, therefore improving Australia's productivity. To summarize, the Fair Work Commission's decision to raise the minimum wage creates two completely opposite issues that will have a significant effect on individuals, firms, and the government. The first issue is that due to the minimum wage increase, demanders of labour, which are firms, will be less willing to pay many employers the increased minimum wage, as it will lessen their profit as an overall company, causing many unskilled workers to have difficulty in finding a job or being made redundant. On the other hand, the government chose to raise the minimum wage to battle poverty. This provides an even higher safety net towards individuals as they are earning more to spend on their everyday needs.